Come on, Mr. Harper, get with it. What is it with Russia and strong leaders, czars, Soviet dictators, and now Putin? I mean, it's not new, it's perennial. Nina Krushcheva, great-granddaughter of one of those strong men, of course, is a Russian affairs academic and expert. She joins me from New York. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
He's not got a bad voice. He's got pluck, hasn't he?
He doesn't have a good voice, but as a typical dictator, he thinks he can do it all.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about this man, because is there genuine regard, even devotion to him in Russia?
I think it's dying out, that devotion, but I still think that Russian people are very much responsible for Putin's existence in so many different ways, because, as you, of course, know, he announced that he's going to be next president. As of March, he's going to have another term, or maybe 2 terms, so it's going to be probably another 12 years of Putin in Russia. And I think our devotion to him in 2000 and until probably 2009, which was very, very strong, really made him completely arrogant. And, you know, sort of Russia goes back to what everybody always cites about Russian leaders, is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, Russian leaders really, one time or another, they stop believing that they do anything wrong, that they would ever need to leave. And, you know, since Khrushchev example is always a welcome one, I know, as much as he tried to get rid of cult of personality and criticize Stalin for it, he himself became susceptible to it. It wasn't, of course, not the same as Stalin's in any way, and yet, as my mother always says, Khrushchev of 1959 is not Khrushchev of 1962.
But Putin, for whatever he is, and in many ways he's fatuous, in many ways he's overbearing, but he's not Stalin, he's not particularly cruel, he's not Saddam Hussein. When we think of cult of personality, look, Barack Obama, peace be upon him, was elected with most people having no idea what his policies were, but it was all charisma and personality. And so is there anything so wrong in Putin being leader of Russia?
No, nothing is wrong with Putin being leader of Russia, and nobody says that. But we also have to remember that being a popular leader is not the same as being a leader who tells you that he's going to stay there forever. Yeah. And that's what Putin now is doing, because in 2002, as much as, you know, I kind of always suspected that a KGB man, and he was a former KGB man, really is not a good idea for Russia. But Russians seem to think that he's going to be fine. And he was, in that sense, was perfect for Russia, because he was somewhat of a strong leader, but also with some sort of democratic flotations, which Russia appreciated at the time. But then when he re-elected himself as a prime minister in 2008 and now going to be president again, I mean, that's much more than being just a popular leader.
As much as I try to understand Russia, I have to be quite candid, I don't really know what the alternatives are. We hear about the small far right, which is not, I think, a serious opposition in any way. But how do Putin and his party's policies differ from the main opposition organization?
Oh, but there is no alternative anymore. There was still an alternative, or somewhat alternative, in 2008 when he handpicked his former deputy, prime ministerial deputy, Dmitry Medvedev. Then there was still some parties that were slightly somewhat independent, but now there is no alternative. I mean, it is the United Russia Party, which is the largest party, and there is also a People's Front, so to speak, which is called United, sorry, not United Russia, the other Russia. But this is not really a viable political movement, or we don't know how viable it can be, because Putin really doesn't allow it to develop into a viable political movement. So there's really no opposition. The only vote that counts in 2012 is Putin's vote, and it's already cast.
And is he just an arch-pragmatist, a traditional proud Russian, but a pragmatist, or is there some greater ideology or philosophy involved?
I think originally that's what he was, but once again, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I think now he just can't leave the Kremlin. And he can't really leave the Kremlin not only because of his own personal ambitions, but also in the last 11 years he has been in power, or around power, close to power. Let's call him the supreme leader, which is going to be much easier than to refer to, is that he created a system of governance that he has to control. Because if he steps aside and steps out, I'm not sure that he can exit this system with no bloodshed. He created, with his president now, I mean, current president Dmitry Medvedev, their cliques, their groups, their clans, and even if these two men seem to be in perfect harmony, or so they say, their clans are not. And given Russia's brutal history, I don't know if he can escape the exit unharmed. He probably created a system of governance that, for him to leave, is going to eliminate him, and maybe even physically.
This website we've heard of, Time to Shove Off, does it represent much of Russian opinion, or is it just a publicity stunt?
I think it represents some of Russian opinion. It doesn't represent much of Russian opinion. It represents about 20–25% of Russian opinion, which has been a story for the last, I would say, 2 years. I mean, Russians, that's what Medvedev's rhetoric, modernizing rhetoric, legal rhetoric is all about. It's for this catering to this 25% who want a different Russia, who want more modern Russia, more democratic Russia, and whatnot. So it is part of the same. Constituency. But the problem with this is that now for Putin, that it became a story. Before they were just sort of marginal 25%, but now they've become a story. My problem with this movement is that how did those Russians who supported Putin until 2009 almost unanimously, what were they thinking? What, a KGB man is going to turn any differently?
Well, I still think he has a quite good voice, and you have a wonderful one. Thank you so very much. We'd love to have you back. Terrific stuff.
Thank you.